BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia at heart and from around the globe. And hello, Nedheads. Hello, Black Box Battalion. Today is Tuesday. Welcome to the Mystery Tuesday segment here on Black Box Online Radio, and today I will be discussing the mystery of the Mandela Effect. And you guys know the drill. You can hit the like button if you want, subscribe if you haven't, and drop a comment down below if you have something to say about the Mandela Effect. For larger things, you can send them to me at blackboxonlineradio@aol.com. And I am your host, Box Ned. Now, this is mostly a true crime channel where I talk about unsolved mysteries. I regularly talk about the Zodiac Killer, Jack the Ripper, the Black Dahlia, and D.B. Cooper. And I guess you'd say that I went down the rabbit hole somewhat about the Mandela Effect, and I got a little bit overwhelmed with this information, and that's mostly what I do here on Black Box Online Radio. I share my ideas with you guys, as well as what I happen to be experiencing in the world of mysteries. I know this is some different material for the channel, but this is actually the third episode that I've done on the Mandela Effect. In 2024, I had the opportunity to interview Justin Danneman about his book, Ghost of War, which is a type of sci-fi novel. But during the interview, he brought up the Mandela Effect, and that was my first exposure to it. And I simply asked him to provide a definition of what the Mandela Effect was, and he told the backstory, and that is that Nelson Mandela passed away in 2013. Nelson Mandela, the former president of South Africa. And when he died in 2013, numerous people remembered him dying in the 1980s, that he died in prison in the 1980s. And they were just absolutely shocked to hear the news about Nelson Mandela dying in the new millennium. And that has created the Mandela Effect. And if I had to describe the Mandela Effect in my own words, I would give three possibilities that have been discussed. The first is that it is a collective false memory when multiple people remember something incorrectly, or multiple people remember the very same, very specific details and information about something that doesn't appear to have actually happened. But there are people out there who have really taken this a step further, because since my last episode on the Mandela Effect in 2024, there's now an entire Mandela Effect community, and there are mostly three possibilities that are discussed about why people have these types of collective false memories. One is that it's a monolinear timeline, and people are just remembering things incorrectly because it fits a particular pattern. The brain recognizes information in patterns, and is almost like filling in the gaps with things that shouldn't be there. That's more or less the skeptical explanation. The second one would be that we live in a world with malleable timelines. Our historical timelines can change. And it's like quantum physics, causation working backwards. Actions in the future can affect what's happened in the past. And because we now have electronic communications, and we have things like videos and recordings, we can observe and document these changes about how historical timelines are very slowly altering. That's the slightly more extreme version. And the third, most extreme explanation is that this is actually done in a man-made way, that people are the ones who are altering the timelines themselves, particularly in Switzerland with the Large Hadron Collider. When atoms and subatomic particles are colliding, it alters and affects the timeline. Now, with options 2 and 3, I can't really comment too much on that because I am simply just unable to. But in terms of some examples of the Mandela Effect for option number 1, I've mentioned this one before on the channel, but I have to bring this up now because I think that this is the biggest example of the Mandela Effect, and that is the Fruit of the Loom cornucopia. The logo for Fruit of the Loom, which is a brand of clothing, they specialize in underwear, but they also sell t-shirts. You guys know all about Fruit of the Loom, and their logo features a set of fruit on it, and most people remember a cornucopia in the background, and when I was first introduced to the Mandela Effect, if you had asked me, does the Fruit of the Loom logo have a cornucopia on it, I would have said yes, and I can even see it in my mind right now about what it would look like. But I was truly shocked to note that not only that it doesn't have one now, but that it never had one. This is perhaps the biggest example. People left comments on my previous Mandela Effect episodes saying that they thought this was the only credible example of the Mandela Effect, and I have seen that comment on other episodes of YouTube channels, as well as on Facebook comments, when people are saying that this is the only aspect of the Mandela Effect that people thought was actually something defendable, this type of collective false memory. And the skeptical explanation is that our timelines and our histories are not evolving. It's just that people associated the cornucopia with an abundance of fruit or an abundance of vegetables. As I said, it's like your brain is filling in the pattern for itself, even if it's something that didn't actually happen. Now, to talk about a newer example that I didn't mention in my previous episode, there's a movie out there with Tom Cruise called Risky Business, and he does a very famous dance scene where he walks into his living room and he's wearing a button-up shirt, and the song that is playing is Old-Time Rock and Roll by Bob Seger. And one of the most famous examples of the Mandela Effect is whether or not Tom Cruise was wearing sunglasses in this scene. And I experienced this one firsthand. That's why I'm bringing it up so early. And I do think that this is another solid example of the Mandela Effect, because I first watched Risky Business about 6 or 7 years ago, and I had seen the dance scene so many times on networks like VH1 as well as clips on YouTube, and I would have said he was wearing a white shirt with a pair of black Wayfarer sunglasses. And I mean, I can also see that exactly how I remember it right now. And when I watched the movie in full, I was genuinely disturbed when I saw him wearing a pink shirt and no sunglasses. And I mean, like, a lot of people have that experience. They're like, no, I remember that happened. And it's not just one person. When it happens en masse, when it happens with thousands, tens of thousands, if not millions of people, it's a type of collective memory that is disputed. I use the term collective false memory, but people are disputing the fact when they insist that it actually happened in their timeline and in their reality. And I would love to know what you guys think about the Fruit of the Loom cornucopia, about Tom Cruise wearing sunglasses in Risky Business. You can always drop your ideas in the comment section down below. One more time, hit the like button and subscribe. And the skeptical explanation for the Risky Business scene is that Tom Cruise does do a very famous scene with sunglasses in Risky Business, but he puts them on at a different time in the movie. Wayfarer sunglasses, and it's a big close-up so you can see very clearly that he's wearing Wayfarers, and that people simply have just blended these two ideas together in their own minds. And I've also found, though, that there are a lot of propositions that people have about the Mandela Effect where the ideas do get blended, and I don't even necessarily think that some of them are extremely defendable, but the stuff that I find to be absolutely the most either frustrating or just not super credible are the ones that relate to the spelling of words or packages. Not the Fruit of the Loom cornucopia, I think that's a very defendable one, but it's like the product Febreze, how was that spelled? Febreze or something like that. A lot of people remember an extra E in it. Did Kit Kat have a hyphen in it? KIT hyphen, KIT, or a dash in the middle? And my simple answer to all of these things is I wasn't really paying attention to the spelling of words on the packages. I mean, double stuff Oreo is another very good example. Double stuff Oreo is not spelled conventionally. The word stuff is spelled S-T-U-F. Some people remember two F's, because that's how you would normally spell double stuff. I wasn't really reading packages that closely when I was a kid, and if it hadn't been for these Mandela Effect discussions, I probably wouldn't be paying attention at all right now, and I might not have noticed. But that would still actually meet the definition of a Mandela Effect in the sense that I talked about, in regards to how people would be taking real information and their brain would just be connecting the dots, or it's almost as if it's following a pattern and they're putting ideas in place and the brain is just filling in the gaps. The brain is filling in the gaps for things. It's almost like it's going so fast that it's overlooking what's actually there and it's just filling in the holes itself, like with the spelling of the word for breeze. How does Kit Kat have a dash or a hyphen in it? And the spelling of the word stuff and double stuff. The brain is just doing things on its own because that's how it remembers the spelling of these very conventional words. You guys can let me know what you think about any of that. I don't really like anything related to the spelling of words because it's really just something that you'd have to pay very close attention to. And I cared more about eating Oreos when I was 7 years old, not how do you spell double stuff Oreos. And the other ones from the Mandela Effect world that I really do not like are the ones that deal with very small amounts of dialogue. Have you ever seen the movie Forrest Gump with Tom Hanks? There is a very famous line in the movie Forrest Gump where Tom Hanks's character says, "Mama always said that life is like a box of chocolates and you never know what you're going to get." That's the line, right? Well, it's actually, "Mama always said that life was like a box of chocolates." And I don't like these either because that's not really reality altering or anything. So I'm just thinking, so what's the big deal? They sound practically the same. And furthermore, if he's talking about something that his mother said in the past, then he's putting it in the past tense. But no matter what, no matter which version, life is like a box of chocolates, life was like a box of chocolates, they sound practically the same when you're saying them spokenly. It's just inaudible dialogue. And I don't think that that would meet the definition of the Mandela effect, where people have a collective false memory. No, they thought they heard something because that's just what it sounded like to them. There's nothing false about that. That's just being mistaken about what you heard. Now, there are some very personal things that people have shared online in regards to the Mandela effect, about how people remember some things that are not necessarily accurate, and sometimes there are very simple explanations. Jessica Simpson played the character Daisy Duke in the remake of the Dukes of Hazzard movie that came out in the new millennium, and she did that with Johnny Knoxville and Sean William Scott. And somebody posted this in a Facebook group when they were saying that they remember Jessica Simpson wearing cowgirl boots for the majority of the film, or in most of her scenes she was wearing cowgirl boots. But when they showed these stills from the movie The Dukes of Hazzard, she wasn't wearing boots at all. And I was thinking, okay, now this one I actually know. I have not seen this Dukes of Hazzard movie. I have not witnessed that, but Jessica Simpson did do a music video called These Boots Are Made for Walking. She did a cover of the song These Boots Are Made for Walking and the music video where she's wearing these so-called cowgirl boots. That was the music video that accompanied the film, and I do remember that because a lot of guys were into her back in like 2005, 2006, thereabouts, and that was something that was popular on the music channels. So sometimes there are simple examples. Another person was talking about a video game for PlayStation called Blasto, and I've never played this video game, but this person said that they remembered it as Captain Blasto, and I was like, no, 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 I don't know what video game you're talking about, but I do know who Captain Blasto was. Captain Blasto was a character from the TV show Rugrats. He's like a fictional character within the show. The more famous fictional character within the show was Raptar, but there was this fictional hero named Captain Blasto from Rugrats. And again, I don't think that either of the two previous examples would meet the definition of the Mandela effect. Those are people getting confused. Those are people who are blending two things together. And it's a little bit of pattern seeking in the brain, but that's with one person. And you have to remember what I said. With the Mandela effect, this is something that needs to be a collective false memory. One of the more clear examples is of the painting of King Henry VIII. King Henry VIII is one of the most famous monarchs of England. And there's a very famous portrait of him that people remember where he's holding a turkey leg, although in the real portrait, he is not holding a turkey leg. But people remember this very clearly to this day that he was. And this, I think, is a better example of the Mandela effect than the two previous ones that I talked about, because it shows, firstly, in the first possibility, that it's just something that people associate with high society, it's something they associate with royalty, it's something that perhaps they have seen in other pictures, and the brain has filled in the gaps, and it's almost like the pattern is coming in line, and that has created a collective false memory. They think that, the fat king is going to be eating a turkey leg, and thousands of people remember something like this. Well, in terms of history actually being altered, again, if that is happening, I don't think we have sufficient evidence to say that now. But there must be some things that you do not necessarily remember, or you might remember things in somewhat of an incorrect way, or you might remember something and somebody else might remember it differently. One thing that I do completely admit is that reality is hard to remember. Memory is very malleable. Your memory can be influenced by things, because when you remember something, it's not actually the event when it's taking place. You're remembering the last time that you remember it. And I have these experiences when, let's say, for example, I'm 37 right now, and if I see something, and I last saw it when I was 4 years old, I can connect the dots immediately. I was like, oh yeah, that pair of shoes, I had a pair of shoes like that when I was 4 years old, and I can see it clear as day. 5 minutes later, the memory is a blur, because I'm remembering the last time that I remembered it. I'm remembering it from 33 years ago. Yeah, I remember that. Now I have to remember, it's like this photocopy of the memory. It's like, and each time you photocopy something, there are going to be a few more imperfections in it. And it really is quite shocking. And I would love to know your guys' experiences if you have these types of things where you remember something very vividly, and then 5 minutes later, it's a very blurry memory. Please let me know in the comment section down below. Now, there's another example of the Mandela effect that was proposed that I disagree with. And it relates to the Peanuts character Charlie Brown. Good old Charlie Brown, right? Charlie Brown and Snoopy. And Charlie Brown regularly wore his famous shirt, which was yellow, and it had a black zigzag on it. And somebody posted this in the Mandela Effect group when they said that they always remember Charlie Brown wearing a yellow shirt, and they posted a comic strip where he is wearing a red shirt that has the black zigzag on it. And I'm a big fan of Peanuts. Charlie Brown is one of my favorite cartoon characters and comic characters. Yes, of course, he wore the red shirt sometimes. We even had a book, like a kid's book, about him in my house where he wore the red shirt. I wouldn't call that a Mandela effect, because that's not a collective false memory. That's something that actually happened. Instead, I would put that in the category of trivia, where that's almost like working in the opposite way. No, I thought it was always yellow. Oh, well, actually, in some comic strips and some books and some depictions of the show, he wore different colored shirts. I would say that that's trivia, not a Mandela effect, because there's nothing false about it. The only thing that is false is that this person was not exposed to these additional parts of the fictional character's story. And if there are any other examples like that, you can drop them in the comments section down below. But I fully admit that I've had these experiences when I remember something, and I remember it so clearly and so vividly that it does disturb me when I find out that it's not real. The Fruit of the Loom cornucopia was one. Tom Cruise and Risky Business, that was another one. But I'm going to share with you guys my personal stories. And again, I don't know if they can count as Mandela effects, because they are only about me, but I've shared some of this stuff online, and people seem to also have some similar experiences. One of them relates to Bruce Springsteen's music video for Born in the USA. It's one of his most famous songs. And at the very end of the music video, his back is to the camera, and then he turns and looks over his shoulder. And I remember this so vividly. When I saw this, it was on the TV as a teenager. You're just watching music videos back when we actually had music videos on TV. And he had a bandana on. And he was actually wearing a denim jacket or vest or type. He has this type of denim clothing, and he turns and faces the camera. Last year, I watched the video for Born in the USA, and he's just wearing a white t-shirt and has no bandana. And that genuinely disturbed me. Like, it genuinely shocked me. I was like, no, because I I've seen that video. I mean, I know what it looks like, and that's just not how I remembered it. Granted, it had been 15 years, maybe 16 or 17 years since I had watched the video. Did I just forget? Probably. But what I think I was actually doing was I was thinking about some different scenes in the video, even for the thumbnail. In the YouTube video, he's wearing denim and he has a headband on. Not a bandana, but it's a headband. So this could be an example of when I took two things and I blended them together, and I'm the one who misremembered. The same way that somebody misremembered Jessica Simpson's boots, where somebody is taking something that did not happen and they are combining it with a different source, like the music video versus the film version, or for me, different parts within the same music video. And the last one that I'm going to share with you is one that is very, very mundane, but this was genuinely disturbing for me. And I had this picture in one of my comic books, which was actually an advertisement for Comic Book the Movie, which was directed by Mark Hamill, and it featured Donal Logue, who played the dad on Grounded for Life, the sitcom. And I had this advertisement in my comic book, and I was like, oh, I really want to see that movie. And then I went to the video store, and I didn't get a chance to watch it, but they had a poster for Comic Book the Movie, and I'm like, one day I'm going to watch that movie. And then once I became an adult, and we had streaming services, I tried to look for it, and it turns out that Donal Logue, the dad from Grounded for Life, was never in Comic Book the Movie. And I was like, what on earth is this? Like, what's happening? He did a different movie called Comic Book Villains. Similar title. But I was like, no, I remember this clear as day. I saw the poster so many times. I saw the advertisement so many times. That genuinely bothered me. It genuinely disturbed me about how something, that I had encountered a bazillion times had not been accurate. And I would love to know your responses to things. By the way, though, in terms of memory being flawed, have you ever heard that thing about how if you remember something 122 times, you will never forget it? If you say something 122 times, you will never forget it. Have you ever heard that? That is total BS. I don't care what anybody says. And the reason that I know that it's BS is sometimes you might be singing along to a song, and it's a song that you've heard more than 122 times, something that you've been listening to for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and you'll forget the words. And for me, that's not even the biggest reason. The biggest reason that I know that you will forget something after 122 times is there are more than 2,500 episodes of Black Box Online Radio, and a couple days ago, I forgot the introduction to my show. More than 2,500 episodes of Black Box Online Radio. I've been doing this channel for 9 years, and I forgot the introduction to my show. I was like, BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia at heart and from around the globe. And then I was like, okay, what do I do next? What do I do next? And then I was able to say the name of the show, and I'm like, I forgot the steps. I've done that so many times. And I drew a blank. And if you want to mean that it's buried in the deep recesses of your memory and you might be able to recall it under certain circumstances, perhaps. But consciously and practically, you can forget something even if you've been exposed to it 122 times and you've said it 122 times. That is an urban myth. A lot of the things that they say about the brain are urban myths, I've really found, or that they're heavily disputed by neuroscientists. Some people even think that being left-brained and right-brained is an urban myth, meaning that left-brained people are going to be more creative and right-brained people are going to be more analytical. Some people say that's total BS. I'm not qualified enough to make a comment on that one, but I will tell you from I will tell you from firsthand experience that if you say something 122 times, you can still forget it. But I also want to point out that one of the reasons why I got pulled into this world of the Mandela Effect again was because of somebody who posted on Facebook, giving a shout out to Misty Morning Star, who posted this in one of the Facebook groups about the Mandela Effect, just asking people, what is the definition of the Mandela Effect? And I said that this was a collective false memory when multiple people remember something that did not happen or did not exist, yet these people remember it in the exact same way. And the reason I'm sharing this with you now is, when I saw that name, Misty Morning Star, I was like, is this person from West Virginia? And I clicked on the profile, and it turned out she was, and I was like, oh my god. I'm from West Virginia, right? I've never met this individual, Misty. I've never had any interactions with her, but she was somewhat of a legend in my part of the state. From time to time, people would talk about how, oh yeah, I knew somebody named Misty Morningstar. That was a really cool name. Well, Misty, if you happen to hear this, guess what? You were famous in 3 counties. And that's all that is. I just had to share that with you guys. But I would really like to know what you think about the Mandela Effect. And when I first heard about it from Justin Danneman, I thought that it was just total BS. I was like, how on earth could people think that Nelson Mandela died in the 1980s? I mean, he got out of prison like in the 90s and he went on to become a politician. And furthermore, I told you that I interviewed Justin in 2024, and I was like, well, I couldn't tell you the exact day that Nelson Mandela died, but it was only like 10, 11, 12 years ago, and he died in 2013. And further, it would make absolutely no sense for him to die in the 1980s. And I heard a very interesting explanation about it, and that is that with Nelson Mandela, people might actually have been thinking about Gandhi. And you might be thinking, well, Gandhi didn't die in the 1980s either, right? Didn't he die in like 1948 or something in an assassination? Okay, but they made a movie about Gandhi in the 1980s, and it was a very famous movie at the time. Ben Kingsley played Gandhi, and he won the Oscar for that in the early 1980s. And there's the assassination scene in the movie and everything. And some people might have been just conflating Gandhi and Nelson Mandela, and they're actually remembering something from a movie about a different world leader. And that was the hypothesis that had been proposed to me, and that's the best thing that I can do. That's the best thing that I can think of. And I've also seen that multiple people have posted that their version of the Mandela Effect is they remember that Nelson Mandela's name was spelled Mendella, Mendella. And I think that that's a totally reasonable one. Again, I'm not too big on the spelling ones because you'd have to be paying some pretty close attention. But this thing with 2 L's in Nelson Mandela, it makes perfect sense because in the English language, Mandela could be read Mandela or Mandela. Mendela could be pronounced Mandela. But if you had 2 L's there, then it would be pronounced Mandela. I mean, that's just I think some simple explanations. What really do you think about the evolving timelines? What do you think about, the atoms and subatomic particles being colliding and altering our timelines? Or do you think that it's just the first explanation, the skeptical alternatives, that we have one historical timeline and that we have collective false memories because people are processing information in similar ways? The brain is a pattern-seeking organism, and it's putting these ideas in place, and it's filling in the gaps and completing the pattern on its own. And it's doing things that fit the pattern, even if it's not historically accurate. That's why people have collective false memories. Please let me know in the comments section down below. I would love to read your responses. And I would also invite you guys to check out my interview with Justin Danneman for his book, Ghost of War, and it has a brain on the cover of the book, and he said something during our interview that has really stayed with me, when he said that he viewed the universe as a collective hive mind, and I was like, well, what on earth does he mean by that? But the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what, I actually kind of do agree with that. I just kind of would use some different phrasing, some fascinating stuff there. Well, that's all for me now. My name is Black Box Ned, and next week I'll be back with some more true crime content on the Mystery Tuesday segment, and the show comes to you Monday through Friday talking about unsolved mysteries. Feel free to start your day with some mystery talk in the morning. On Mondays about the Zodiac Killer, on Wednesdays about Jack the Ripper, on Thursdays about the Black Dahlia, and on Fridays about D.B. Cooper. And I will be launching the new official Mystery Tuesday segment very soon. And if you want to support all of these efforts, you can go over to buymeacoffee.com. buymeacoffee.com/blackboxned88, and that allows you to make a donation or contribution to help support the show, and anybody who makes a donation will get a shout out on Zodiac Monday. That's all from me now. You guys know where to write the show, and I will be with you tomorrow for a new episode about Jack the Ripper. Until next time.